Sir Victor Goddard and the Time Slip. The skies are a wondrous place, and ever since man evolved, we've dreamt of being able to fly. Of course, this is now possible, and thanks to the technological advancements in aircraft, being able to fly has meant that human eyes have seen things that we should not necessarily have seen. If you've ever been to Scotland, you'll know that its impressive landscapes and sprawling greenery can be extremely relaxing and very picturesque to fly over. But for one man in 1935, his routine flight over the Highlands became a little strange. Wing Commander Victor Goddard was conducting a routine aerial inspection of a disused World War I Air Force base at Drem near East Lothian. The base, which was dilapidated and had not been used for years, appeared to be being used as a farm. A day or two later, Goddard flew back towards his own base. It was a grey and rainy Monday, with low visibility and high winds, completely the wrong conditions for a pleasant flight, as you can imagine. He attempted to navigate towards Drem, but couldn't work out where to fly, given the conditions. Suddenly, Goddard lost complete control of his plane. It plummeted towards Earth through the thick grey cloud, which offered no brakes. As he reached 200 feet, he was certain it was over. But it wasn't. Goddard reported seeing swirling water and a stony beach and was flying near 150 miles an hour. Drem's hangars appeared as a silhouette in the bleakness of the afternoon, and as he approached the airfield, the skies brightened completely. As he flew nearer, he noticed a distinct difference in Drem's appearance. The airfield was freshly tarmacked, the hangars restored, and 4 bright yellow aircraft sat on the stand. One model of aircraft he didn't recognize, a monoplane of a new variation with RAF markings. Strangely, in 1935, the RAF had no monoplanes, not even for training purposes. There were men working on the ground wearing light blue overalls, which was also strange as the mechanics that Goddard was used to seeing normally wore tan grey. Nobody seemed to notice Goddard's plane flying low over the airfield, and as he pulled his joystick backwards and powered back into the skies, the grey skies and ray returned. Soon he was near his intended destination and landed, dazed. Goddard tried to comprehend what he'd seen, but simply couldn't. His colleagues thought he was either drunk or mad, and he stopped telling his story. However, 4 years later, the airbase at Drem would be refurbished. The RAF uniforms would change to light blue, and a new training monoplane painted bright yellow arrived on the tarmac at Drem. As time went by, Victor Goddard came to the startling conclusion that he'd, in fact, travelled through time. The hikers on Devil's Mountain. Resting on the border of San Pablo, there is a mountain referred to by locals living in the area as the Devil's Mountain. The mountain has been surrounded with a number of disappearances from hikers every single year that claims the lives of even the most experienced hikers in the region. One such story from the locals tells of that of a married couple that went on a hike to the mountain and stayed there for a few days. After they had met others and told them they would be taking a forked path, they were never seen from again, leaving many people wondering which path they had taken, since there seemed to have been no forked path in the area. This story would later come up once again after a group of boys went to the mountain on a hiking trip and came across a married couple that fit the look and description of the couple that had went missing a few years prior, and so followed the couple believing that they might be ghosts or strange manifestations of the lost couple. As they followed the couple, they witnessed them going down a forked path and so followed them, of which eventually led to them losing sight of the couple and sustaining injuries falling down an area of the mountain. This has led some to believe that the lost people of whom went hiking on the mountain are still there, stuck in a possible time loop or warped reality in which they are jumping through time and encountering other people of whom have went missing on the mountain years prior. These fears have left many, including experienced hikers, worried as to how or why these strange occurrences have been appearing on the mountain, and so leave many fearful of journeying through the region. Are shadow people time travellers? Shadow people sound a bit creepy, right? They are defined as supernatural shadow-like humanoid figures that, according to believers, are seen flickering on walls and ceilings in the viewer's peripheral vision. Shadow people are considered as entities of the underworld, but those who have experienced them are not sure whether they are evil, helpful, or just there. Scientists have tried to offer explanations for the phenomena. For example, some researchers conclude that seeing shadow figures are simply symptoms of sleep paralysis or deprivation, and others have noted that drug addicts are more likely to experience these sorts of hallucinations. Alternatively, they can simply be the mind playing tricks on somebody who's experiencing a heightened sense of alert, for example, when you're walking down a dark alley at night. However, some people are convinced that shadow people are actually apparitions of time travelers. They think that the reason that they are only in shadow form is because we, on Earth, can't clearly see the future, and therefore find it hard to see these figures. Instead of being supernatural or devilish creatures, they are actually just people from other dimensions. They also don't seem to be taking any notice of the people that see them, therefore fitting in with the common time travel theme. Often when time traveling, the person experiencing it is not noticed by anybody else. The thing is, this is all heavily disputed, and the scientific explanations are well weighted in their favour. We'll never know for sure if shadow people are time travellers or not, or even real. But one thing is for sure: the human imagination is a powerful thing. The disappearance of Jean Virginia Sampere. British Columbia, Canada. Sometime around 10 or 11 p.m. on the 14th of October 1971. 18-year-old Jean Virginia Sampere was walking along Highway 16 with her cousin Alvin before he turned back to get a jacket from home. He believed she was going to a nearby shop, but upon his return to the highway, she was nowhere to be seen. Alvin reported hearing a car door shutting, but nothing else. Earlier that evening, Jean had been seen by her brother Rod's wife, Violet. Violet recounted that Jean had been at her mother's house, but had left crying. After attempting to go after Jean, Violet was stopped by Jean's mother, who told Violet that Jean would return. Jean was of Gitxsan descent. The Gitxsan were a First Nation, meaning south of the Arctic Circle, indigenous group. When Jean failed to return home that night, her mother reported her to the Jitsi-Jiyukla Indian band, who, due to protocol, waited for some time to report the disappearance to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The search for Jean continued for 8 days, with police officers from other towns joining the search. Alas, despite tip-offs in larger cities such as Vancouver and Toronto, no trace of Jean was found. A 1971 report from the Jitsi-Jiyukla band chief counsellor determined that Jean had drowned, and the case was formally closed in 1985, only to be subsequently reopened after the family complained that there was no conclusive evidence that Jean had drowned. For Jean to have simply vanished was as alarming as it was strange, and subsequent events in the area fueled more sinister theories about the case. Her brother Rod alleged that he had seen files stating that a man named Kenny Russell had found some footprints near Jitsi-Jiyukla River. Although the footprints were never identified, this was the piece of evidence said to be behind the drowning theory. Rather mysteriously, Jean's boyfriend had gone missing soon before she disappeared herself, but was found drowned in the Skeena River nearby. The authorities initially thought that Jean may have committed suicide, but once again, this theory was dispelled as Jean was not known to be a suicide risk. The most chilling theory is that Jean was the second of the first 3 victims of the Highway of Tears, a stretch of Highway 16 where between 18 and 83 people have either gone missing or been murdered since 1970. This theory is supported by the car door noise her cousin heard on the night she disappeared. Worryingly, there is known to be disproportionately high numbers of murders and disappearances of Indigenous women on the victim list. Jean Virginia Sampere may well have been number 2 on that list. The disappearance of Susan Pearson. In 1966, a woman by the name of Susan Elizabeth Pearson was last seen in Missoula, Montana, and has not been seen since. Miss Pearson, an American woman from Portland, Oregon, went missing due to mysterious circumstances. She had been a graduate student at the University of Montana and was teaching there as an instructor at the time of her disappearance, days before her doctoral thesis was due. She was last seen by her friends on campus, as she was meant to take her business administration exam but never arrived. Likewise, Susan missed 2 work checks meant for her adding up to $1,200, which were never claimed. Initial searches for the woman were futile, Yet when the police checked her apartment, they found it in pristine condition, untouched, with not a single sign of struggle. Her car was soon thereafter found completely abandoned in Missoula's business district. Her belongings were still in the car when the police checked it. They found her keys, purse, and other necessities inside, ones that any sane person would never leave unattended. Bones were found in 1970, but were analysed and found to be animal remains. Susan Elizabeth Pearson is one of the oldest missing persons cases Montana has had in the past century. Curiously, Ms. Pearson was the granddaughter of Walter Pearson, Oregon's Democratic senator. Susan King, who was one of Susan Pearson's friends and a prominent singer at a nightclub, told the police that she had visited her on the night before her sudden disappearance, and that Pearson was in a frantic, nervous state. It was just a different Sue, she had stated. A prominent piece of the puzzle was the information King also received. Pearson mentioned leaving her life behind to begin anew in her frantic state. Later, she added that 2 delinquent boys from the course she was teaching threatened her with physical violence. Pearson's brother, David, added that it appeared his sister rushed out of her apartment and the tea kettle was left to boil on the stove. Days after her disappearance, there was a report of a sighting in Lolo Pass, but evidence of her actually being there is non-existent. No further sightings were ever reported. The Buash map shows Antarctica without ice. For over 40,000 years, Antarctica has been covered by glaciers and snow, making it one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. The ice makes it impossible for Antarctica to be a home to any humans. However, there are some thinkers who believe this wasn't always so. The Buash map was drawn by French geographer Philippe Buache. Buache drew his maps by combining his geographic knowledge, research from contemporary explorers, and astronomical observation. The map he produced in 1739 was titled in French. However, when translated, it means Map of the Southern Lands contained between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Pole, where the new discoveries made in 1739 to the south of the Cape of Good Hope may be seen. The biggest discovery on Buache's map was that it appeared to depict Antarctica before it was buried by ice, leading some explorers and geographers to use it as evidence that Antarctica was inhabited by an ancient civilization before being rediscovered in the 19th century. The most famous proponent of this theory was Charles Hapgood, who published Buache's map in his 1966 book Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. However, the arguments of Hapgood and others have been met with criticism. Firstly, many argue that Hapgood did not take care in translating Buache's annotations on the map before publishing it, and if he had, he would have realized that Buache did not mean to depict an ice-free Antarctica. For example, there are multiple annotations over Antarctica on the map where Buache has written conjecturer and soupçonné, which translate as conjectured and suspected, showing Buache himself was not sure that human life could survive on Antarctica. What's more, the annotations also make frequent references to icebergs, freezing temperatures, and glaciers over Antarctica. Icebergs are even drawn on the map. Therefore, for many, the argument that Buache was using the map to claim Antarctica was ice-free would be ludicrous. Secondly, 2 versions of Buache's map were created, one which shows Antarctica with ice and one without. This has led some to suspect that the latter version of Buache's map might have been drawn by another cartographer or even forged. Thirdly, there is every possibility that Buache was mistaken. Buache was a highly qualified man who was one of the foremost theoretical geographers, and a lot of deductions on his map have proved true. For example, the existence of Alaska and the Bering Strait. However, that is not to say his work was faultless. His map shows New Zealand as a peninsula of the Antarctic landmass and a central Antarctic Sea, both of which are incorrect. It's possible the map was drawn by Buache, but showing an ice-free Antarctica that could have housed an ancient civilization was just another mistake he made. The truth of the matter is, we will never know if Antarctica was once home to an ancient civilization. In some areas of Antarctica, there are 30 tons of ice weighing down on the land surface. If this ice were to be removed, the land would be so low that sea levels would immediately flood it. Frustratingly, this means there is no way to prove or disprove Buash's map and the theories that have come from it. But what do you make of these recent discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.